Hey, what is up guys, Master here, back to do another video, and we are back to first person perspective casts. Hope you all enjoyed that previous video I did on Toxicity. I thought that was an awesome game. I did it from a third person point of view, just so you could see both my own perspective and the game and how it was played from the third view. So this is going to be a little bit different this time. It's going to be a black hand mirror, sort of a blast from the past, as black hand mirrors were all that we saw back in 16 Inca Open days. So definitely a bit of nostalgia there. You don't see black hand mirrors that often nowadays. Depends on the map. Small maps still tend to gravitate more towards black hand being favored due to that infantry spam being so cost effective, and the travel distance isn't particularly far on maps such as this, so you can make inf work pretty well, but not in a mirror. The reason why inf doesn't work in a mirror is because of scorpion tanks, and scorp tanks is the name of the game. You can crush infantry. You can even crush heavy infantry with the Dose Blade upgrade. That gives you plus 20% armor in 1.02 plus, which is what this game is being played on. In fact, all the games on my channel are played on 1.02 plus. This is the most played community patch. It fixes most of the bugs in the game and improves balance. Does not really change the game significantly. Still has the same units, upgrades. It's not like a mod per se. Bike first for me. This is something I've done in recent times. Makes your opponent second guess, is it a couple of bikes coming towards me? Am I getting rushed? Sometimes they overreact and build their own bikes when in fact it was just a scout of mine. Whereas a Raider Buggy Scout doesn't quite have the same effect. Your opponent is most likely gonna just ignore it and continue building harvesters. Sadly for me though, I'm gonna have to deal with this bike of his. He's got a second bike, and if I recall, I built this buggy in anticipation of a Cabal scope, but he has two bikes, and unfortunately for me, I'm going to lose this buggy straight away. So I'm off to a bad start in this game. Losing a buggy, losing a bike, only getting one of his. And I'm going to be forced to respond to this just due to the DPS of those bikes. He's going to be able to put pressure on my harvesters. I've got down a second war factory, 5 and 2 for me, and I decided to sell this Conyard off right away. This is black hand mirrors in a nutshell. MCV selling, all-ins, double war factory. That's why I aptly named this video Blast from the Past. This is also a Technique map, so Technique, he'll love this match. In fact, I sent him the link of this game and he loved it. He thought this game was fantastic. Nice to see him still around, though not playing Kane's Wrath. He plays mostly StarCraft 2 nowadays, but he still enjoys watching Kane's Wrath. And the thing he doesn't like about Kane's Wrath is that you have to play the same opponents all the time, which I sort of get, but I think it's the same in every game. Once you get to a certain level, your pool of players that can compete with you gets smaller and smaller. If you're a new player, I think there's a lot of potential for getting games in Kane's Wrath. More new players than there are pros. So I'm sending in these Scorpion tanks in one by one. Potentially a mistake from me. I'm bleeding them a little bit. Some tanks of mine on that low health. They're going to move a little bit slower. If I've got good micro here, I should send those back to base. Every tank counts, especially in a TIB limited map such as this. And I also don't have an MCV, so I can't set up an expansion with a refinery. I've got a Saboteur in the bottom of the map. Not hoping much for that. It's going to be very difficult to sneak that around. One thing I have to comment on is how beautiful the textures are on this map. That blue ice shining like it is looks great. Definitely a nice map that Technique made and designed. This is using Red Alert 3 assets, I believe. So I'm going to pray that this engineer gets to an important structure of his, perhaps the MCV. I'm walking past power plants that he can sell. I'm obviously pulling his attention away with these Scorpion tanks. He puts down a hand of not noticing my Saboteur, and I was able to get that right away. And I'm not selling it off, guys. I'm not selling this MCV off because I've got something better in mind. And you know what that is? It is building a tier 2, and I get straight onto it. I didn't hesitate. I got this tier 2 to upgrade Dozer Blades. I'm gonna be able to get Dozer Blades from my opponent's Conyard. I sell it off now. I'm like, okay, I no longer need this command post or operation center anymore. I'm gonna upgrade a power plant with that op center, make use of it, and since we're both black hand, I'm gonna have the same upgrades for my units. So I'm going to research the Dozer Blades now. This is going to be a critical upgrade in the coming few minutes. Really, what I should have done in this game was build a comm center before selling my MCV anyways to get that Dozer Blades. But it's more cool, I guess. Definitely points for style, taking your opponent's MCV and upgrading it that way. But this attack is pretty relentless from him. He's going to try and harass my harvesters, which are now starting to long leech from that tip expansion. Lots of micro happening here. Positioning is very key when you're dealing with Scorpion tanks and a big amount of them. I don't have an expansion. He does. Flame tank in the bottom. Dozer Blade upgrade does complete. I'm going to also use that tier 2 and get a flame tank out to potentially harass his expansion ref. He's got a ref at his expansion. If I can take that out, that or at least even the playing field. I'm long leeching tip. He can take out that tip spike. That's something that he could do, but he doesn't have enough forces. I should also look to do the same. And at this present time, my win condition is to continuously build up an army of tanks and long leech tip. Maybe I could squeeze out a harvester or two. If I win a big fight, I should probably get another one out so I can offset the travel distance to my refs. It's gonna affect my income per minute, having to travel from that field to my refineries. So having a harvester or two extra will make up for that. And one thing to bear in mind, guys, is because I'm not expanding or building an MCV, is that all the resources I'm getting are being spent on units, not infrastructure. Whereas my opponent, look how much buildings he has. He had to place refineries and power plants. He's spending a chunk of those resources on infrastructure, whereas I'm solely going for units. So despite me not having a base, the longer this goes, if I can harvest that full tip field, though I doubt I can, but if I could, I'd get way more units than him. The one thing I will not have the opportunity to do is get a tier 3 down and build a Redeemer. Redeemers are excellent in Black Hand mirrors for that rage gen. Redeemer plus Scorp. But yeah, Scorpion tanks are definitely ready in this game. That one Fnatic squad forcing back my army, and I'm trying desperately to fight a gap in his base. This game is pretty non-stop, guys. Like I have always something to comment on. There's not a moment of dull action. It's just Scorps, lots of positioning. I think I'm just going to accept the hit there and lose a tank or two to that Fnatic squad. A couple power plants exposed at the back. I don't think he has any forces here, just a couple of tanks. I've got two armies of Scorpions. Both of us now have the Dozer Blade upgrade, so I no longer have that upgrade advantage. And what I need is a win of some nature. Unfortunately, that is not it. In the south, I sack a couple tanks. I see an upgraded power plant. We can see a Tiberium core on that. If I can destroy it, that would be nice. Nice concave from me. I'm using the reverse formation move technique to get those tanks into a better fighting formation so they can get more guns into range, which is important in a tank v tank fight. The way you do that is you press D on your keyboard while simultaneously doing a formation move by holding both your left and right mouse button down at the same time. That's how you get into formation move. And your tanks will reverse while in formation, which is a huge deal. I've still got that comm center around, so I can go for flame tanks, I can go for reckoners, but with all of the flanks being guarded by Scorp tanks, it's not likely to work getting a flame tank out. One fight in the bottom isn't going my way, but the fight in the top is definitely going my way. I'm going to be able to force back that army of tanks. He's trying to harass my harvesters, which are mining away at that field, replenishing my Scorp tank losses. And whilst they are doing that, my main field is regrowing. Some crystals there coming back. I do have a spike lead currently. 1 spike to 2. Scorp tank sadly does reverse move into that. There is a way to prevent reverse move bugs from happening. I was going to make a whole video about this, but I'll just say it out loud now. If you want to avoid reverse move bugs, just press S on your keyboard to stop your units before reversing them. Issuing a stop command to your units before reversing will 100% of the time prevent reverse bugs. But of course there is inherent disadvantages to doing that, like your units may briefly stop firing for half a second, which is not ideal, but at the same time, in a big tank fight with 40 tanks, having them not do that is a big plus for you, whereas your opponent is most likely gonna hemorrhage some of his forces to you. So I've got lots of tanks here, and this is going to culminate into a massive battle, but I need a tactic. I can't just sit here and build up tanks. This is gonna have... I'm definitely gonna be limited in effectiveness if I build like 100 or so of them. They're not gonna pay off if I build like 100. I could lose them all to a really big race gen. At this point, he has a tech lab down, so he can build purifiers and a redeemer, and we're going to see if he decides to do just that or not. Raider buggy out here for me, just going to do some recon. I'm looking for any where I can go. Redeemer does come out now. Bike there for him to scout me. He can one-click my ref, but he's not going to get both of them. I did split them apart just barely. Oh, yeah, there's the Redeemer army is in the top of the map. He's got an MCV looking to push me with that. Maybe he has a second MCV gonna obby push. He's almost dry out of tip, so him pushing now makes sense because he hasn't got much more resources to gather. Plus, he doesn't have the same passive income stream as I do with that tip spike advantage. Tech Lab he could sell off, considering he has the Redeemer. Blackhand only really need the Redeemer. He can get a chemical plant down for Tip Vein. I'd build it only for the Tip Seed at this point. But yeah, both of us now have a sum of tanks that, quite frankly, I haven't seen in the game in a long time. But yeah, there will be a point of diminishing returns, which is what I wanted to say earlier. With these tanks, if you build like 60 or 100 of them, they're not going to be able to be positioned in a way to benefit you as a player in a big tank fight. So I think I'm approaching the limits of what is acceptable as a tank size, as a tank army on a map as big as this. A map like this can't accommodate hundreds of units. You can't formation them, you can't position them well enough. So I'm a little bit out of position here. He's going to find a gap in my base, and I'm going to quickly pull back with my army. I've got a huge army in both directions. I'm not going to consolidate into one group. That would be silly for the reasons I mentioned just before. And I'm going to return to base and defend this base of mine. That Redeemer is a big concern. That's why I'm not going to venture into it. Instead, I'm going to opt to kill this MCV, which cannot deploy. It is trapped there next to undeployable terrain, and now we have ourselves a bit of a conundrum. He is in my base with a Redeemer and a tank army. I'm in his base with my Scorp tank army. I'm going for the tier 3 refinery and power plant, and at this point I have one thing and only one thing on my mind, and that is base trade. I'm going to base trade like my life depends on it here, because he has a Redeemer and 2 purifiers. 2 of them did go down to the tanks. I really wanted to kill those first, because those have a flamethrower on them which deal with structures really nicely. Now I have kept around my operation center so I can cast the laser fence on one of my buildings to keep it alive a little longer, which could make the difference between winning or losing. But I have just a handful of structures left to destroy, and I'm going to use that laser fence now on this war factory before my operation center falls. And just with 4 power plants left, these low health tanks are going to desperately try and take them out. Those purifiers are doing what they can to save it. I've only got 1 structure left. The Redeemer is approaching my war factory, and I'm not sure how low on health that war factory was when I killed the remainder of his base, but that was insane. I thought that was crazy considering I didn't have an MCV for 15 minutes. That was a crazy game, and especially so considering I got that MCV and was able to upgrade dozer blades through the use of my opponent's MCV. So yeah guys, hope you all enjoyed that game. It's a Black Hand Mirror. Yeah, sure, there weren't many unit varieties, just Scorpion tanks, and in his case he had a Redeemer and a couple purifiers. But nevertheless, I thought it was an awesome game, and it came all the way down to the wire, and I don't think any of you could have anticipated that game going that way. Anyways guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to smash the like button. I really do appreciate that. And before I go, I'd like to thank my patrons for supporting me and continuing to support this channel. Without you guys, I would not have done what I did with the patch especially, and the 4K mod. Anyways guys, I will catch you all in the next video. This is it from me, Master Leaf. Peace out.